You cannot negotiate genuine desire. So this has come up recently as Dr. Cameron Sepah, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, got into a bit of a tiff over whether the marriage counselors and clinical psychs are setting men up for failure. And he makes the case that it's not genuine desire being negotiated, but compromise, and puts the onus on men to find their own masculine therapist, which will avoid the issue entirely. And I gotta say, it sounds pretty good, but then I thought about it, and I'm confused. He took 8 years to get through his higher education, and this is the best he can do? So, typical internet, we run to our notebook and start putting our thoughts down, standing in front of my editing software to correct someone on the internet. Yes, I'm one of those guys, and hey, it's very easy to dismiss this, thinking, he's got the authority of the American Psychological Association. You're just a guy on the internet. Why you mad, bro? Well, this stuff's kind of important. I'm a child of divorce, as are most of my friends. And more of my friends now are the latest casualties of a bad divorce too. They all had counselors and many had shrinks, yet here we are. This isn't about authority, it's about being effective. And by the time I'm done with this video, I expect you, the viewer, whether you agree with me or not, to come out of this with a better understanding of how to place your trust where it does the most good, how to understand the world, and best of all, how to be able to change your mind when the information changes. Getting started. What does it mean when I say you cannot negotiate genuine desire? Well, it means in a relationship, there's two forces at work. There's desire and there's comfort. Now, comfort is simple. Waking up every day and knowing the girl beside you will be there, having her do that awkward thing where they just stare at you for a few minutes when you get up, knowing that there's no stress over the bills, safety, security. Guys are good at it because life is pretty easy. For a girl to be comfortable, all it requires is food, a nap, and a little TMZ drama to get through the day. I had a call from her mother once a week that pisses her off, and she Gucci, fam. Desire, though. Desire is a different beast altogether. Guys who have been around longer than me and are a hell of a lot smarter see it in their own lives. In the description, I've added a great example from an author who goes by the name Archwinger. He was one of those guys that used to believe in negotiating desire. I mean, compromise. Now, it's a bit of an edgy report, but it is interesting. He has a conversation with his buddy's wife, who he and she are on the rocks. The buddy basically threatened to leave, and then she started putting out more. And isn't that always the case? Like, if a man is unhappy in a relationship, it's always about the sex. She tells him how it's hard to want to sleep with her husband. She loves him, but she isn't in love with him. Quoting, I mean, it's physically easy. It's not difficult to do. It's not intellectually challenging. It doesn't take all that much time, and it doesn't cost any money. I don't see what's so hard about it. I guess it's just hard to make myself do it. So we're civilized people. If somebody doesn't want to have sex, then we've decided as a civilized people that they don't have to. This is almost always a husband problem, by the way. I mean, we got tons of testosterone. We even invented the concept of a slump buster. Now, women don't have that. So when guys who are red pill to relationships say that you cannot negotiate desire, they're speaking from experience. There are no magic words to make a girl enthusiastically sleep with you. No ultimatum, no threat, no kindness. Nothing that comes out of your mouth is gonna work. If your house is 2,000 square feet or 2,500 square feet, that comes with trade-offs, and a woman can be equally comfortable in either. You can go to a private school or a public school. Most women are comfortable just so long as their kids are being educated. You can get chocolate or vanilla ice cream, and women are comfortable binging on either. Comfort can be negotiated. Desire, though, not so much. And you kind of know this. I mean, it's in the language. Girls talk about butterflies in their stomach. It just happened. He's my soulmate. Do you notice something similar about those? Yeah, it's all about the feelings. Now, I don't want to get sappy here, but biologically, what's happening is she's getting a dopamine hit. Dopamine, by the way, is the sexy times hormone, and it's the main reason you cannot negotiate desire. If it doesn't give a dopamine hit, then it ain't doing it. So when you see people like the not-so-good doctor advocating for compromise, all I hear is talk. All she hears is talk, and all you hear is excuses. So we can argue over the semantics of negotiation or compromise, but I haven't seen a compromise that ends up with a girl suck-starting a leaf blower. So if you have an example, I'm all ears. The second part, though, and arguably the more important part, is that appeal to the authority and the recommendation for a masculine strength. So is the authority good, or is the authority bad? Well, if the authority is good, then anybody who's accredited should be able to handle a baseline level of care, and so their advice should be universal. I mean, no one would go to surgery unless there was a solid medical board that can guarantee you'll walk out of there after going under the knife by anybody who they certify. So then the question is, if the authority is so important, and we know this because he appeals to it with the as a clinical psychologist, so why is it in the same comment he then tells guys to find a masculine psychologist? So not only do they need an APA accreditation, but a masculinity one as well? So I don't know who issues man cards, so let me know in the comments who you think I should direct that email to. Now in the last video, I talked about shame being used to bully insecure guys into believing things that aren't useful to them. You know, as a man, you shouldn't do X, or as men, we need to A. I make the case that if the advice was in your best interest, then no one would have to guilt you into it. So in this video, I'm making the case of, as an authority, you should do X, does the exact same thing but from a different angle. It's preying on blind trust in order to manipulate the guy into whatever you want him to believe. Now, I'm not accusing him of this, he's saying it himself. Paraphrasing it, it's, I'm an authority, you are wrong, and I am right. All you need to do is look past the authority and pick whomever chops the most wood and wears the best flannel while massaging the largest beard in your Gucci, fam. Doctors don't tell you to find a masculine dermatologist. They tell you to find a dermatologist because they know that they're interchangeable with their skills. That's the trust in the authority. If you want a female dermatologist or a male dermatologist, that's personal preference, but either way, you're gonna be getting generally the same care. Maybe you like one and the other one's a bit of a dick, but they both give you the same care. Now, Cameron is doing something I accused the doctor known as Healthy Gamer of doing a few videos back, using authority as a shield against being questioned. So I can't think of a worse betrayal of authority than that. I mean, if what he was peddling was effective, he wouldn't need an appeal to authority, let alone a masculine authority. He would have pointed to the outcomes. No psychologist I know has anything less than an 80% success rate, or something like that. And if his approach works, he would lead with that, but he doesn't. He points to the framed sheepskin on his wall and an appeal to the masculine. There's that container word I talk about, by the way. He doesn't define masculine. You can fill it up with whatever meaning you want. It just means whatever you want it to mean. So now, you're a co-conspirator to his compromise plan, which definitely isn't negotiating desire because they're totally different with words according to the Oxford Dictionary. I didn't steal your wallet. I simply liberated your financial holdings without due process. Totally different. I'll end this video off with an example. Now, I have hundreds of men who agree with the general sentiment and have tons of examples of it, but I wanted something more specific for you. So to quote here, the process of counseling in my case is from my ex-wife's perspective, a tick box exercise, and see, I did everything to save my marriage relationship. For me, it was the last hope of staying together and being able to live with my kids. So I wanted to rekindle the relationship. I wanted to negotiate the way forward. My ex didn't feel desire anymore. The stakes were high for me and it was a done deal for her. So the helplessness and stress put me into the most undesirable versions of myself. I went into it on the basis that this is my last chance and this professional therapist will help us get through it. So I did what the therapist asked of me. I went through the process of expressing my feelings, explaining what I would do better and how I would change. It was always about me doing more for her. And each time my ex expressed that what was wrong with me, the therapist asked me how I would change or help. Anything from being at home more since I was working too much, to allowing my stay-at-home ex more downtime after looking after the kids, to getting on with her family more. The process and the words used by the therapist implied that this was the way forward. This is how relationships and marriages get saved. And to the old me, that made sense. Agreed though, the therapist never expressed in terms of negotiating desire, but of course the reason for being there was to save the relationship, and that can be only done by rekindling desire, which of course has a cruel irony. This process can never achieve. The end result for me, and I am sure that for many men, is worse than if no therapist had been involved. So what remaining desire there was plummeted like a stone. When I entered that therapist office, my soon-to-be ex, I effectively ceded power and agency to this professional who simply doesn't understand that she just didn't desire me anymore while I was desperate to keep my family together. Now, maybe I'm wrong, and all this wasn't negotiated desire, only compromise, and it's totally off base with what I'm talking about here, but it didn't really matter to this guy, did it? Now, the examples I've seen from men where this stuff turns around, ends up with happier and healthier families, was a process called dread. It was the very first video on this channel where I made Madeleines and introduced people to the concept. I'll put a link in the end card so you can see it more. Anyways, I've been going on long enough. You can't negotiate desire. It isn't some jab at the psychology practice, it's a warning to men. The worst thing you can do is deal with a girl's limbic brain using frontal lobe tools. If she's into you, genuinely, your behavior, your actions, everything about you is inspiring a dopamine response. If it's not, then there's no magic words or fancy degrees or masculine authorities out there who can change that. You're on your own. And if this scares you, then you just don't get it yet. You are the sole reason for your success or failure. And I find that to be wonderfully comforting. Now, I have to ask myself, why is Cameron putting this stuff out there? Is it to draw attention to his masculine tribe, the maximum tribe specifically? Now, if I were more jaded, I'd say he doesn't care, and all this fluff feel-good language is to make people feel good and pay money to continue to feel good. Taking shots at bigger brands help expose them to a different demographic, but I have a feeling it's kind of like how the military taught me most anything. It's that when you're in doubt, you revert back to your training. Now, he was trained to think like this. He was trained to talk like this. So when these things come up, he defaults to that. It's not a bad thing. It's not a malicious thing. It's just a thing. Appeal to the authority and ignore the outcomes. Now, I don't have time to bow to an authority. I got a relationship to lead and a life to enjoy. I am the sole reason for my success and failure, and I'm okay with that. And it's just not negotiable. Thanks for sticking around to the end. I assume at the end of this one you've gotten a better appreciation for the plight of men and a good understanding of what it means when guys like me will tell you that you cannot negotiate desire. If you like this video, feel free to like it. Check the back catalog. I got tons of stuff like this. Again, end of the day, we're all about helping other men. Also, check the links in the description. Patreon community is doing pretty well. We have our Q&As on Fridays. Feel free, come check it out. I don't charge till the end of the month because I usually know that by the time the guy spends some time in there, he appreciates it and sticks around. But on that note, I'm going to leave you guys to it. Cheers.